In today's session, let me discuss about Human Resource Management Unit 2. The concept is relating to selection and selection process. Once the company is done with the recruitment procedure, the immediate step to begin with is selection. A selection refers to the process or the activity involved in selecting the right candidate. It is considered to be one of the most important functions of Human Resource Management Department. Every organization wants to ensure that they have the right number of candidates with the right talent and they should be placed at the right time because the organization functioning purely depends upon its quality of people. So, therefore, the definition of selection is it is a process of differentiating between those applicants who are to be shortlisted, selected, and those who are likely to be dropped. So, it is the process of selecting the right candidate with the required qualifications and capabilities to fill the vacancy in the organization. So, selection is the process of evaluating the job applicants to determine which candidates are most suitable for a particular job based on certain aspects such as their qualifications, backgrounds, their relevant background check, and also other key factors like skill sets. Hence, there are certain steps involved to conduct this process, and it varies from one organization to another. So, the selection process is the process of shortlisting the right candidates. So, let's look into the steps. As I mentioned, the steps may vary from one organization to another. Few might follow all the 8 steps, or it might go with additional of another 1 or 2 steps depending on the nature of job. So, when you refer books, each author would have come out with different steps. But let's look into an normal mid-size organization which undergoes the selection into these standard 8 steps. The steps are the first, it begins with preliminary interview. The next step is receiving of applications, screening of applications, various selection or employment test, and followed by employment interview, reference or checking of background, and if required, physical examination will also be taken as a part of selection test, and then it is followed by final selection. Let's discuss each step in detail. So as I mentioned, the selection process will vary. So let's take here the examples are. In the previous, we saw around 6 to 7 steps, but here they've additionally added contract of employment and also the evaluation of selection program. That is the 8th and 9th step. If you notice, it is being added. So let's discuss each step in detail. Preliminary interview. The purpose of the face-to-face interview is to scrutinize the applicants, that is, to eliminate those who are not qualified, with respect to their background, age, or even educational qualification. So, here, once the application is being received and after the job opening has been announced, the candidates will apply, but not all the candidates with the required background may apply. So we do this screening here. And next is selection tests. There are different types of selection tests. Maybe in the next session, we will focus only on the types of selection tests, which is also important for your examination. So it may be administered depending on the type of job and the nature of the company. Generally, these tests are conducted to test the applicant's ability, aptitude, and personality. Let's move on to understand the next type, which is the interview. The interview gives insight into a person's verbal accuracy and how sociable they are. This is also, it is a basis to provide the opportunity to ask the candidates and seek some job related queries. So in selection process, we take an employment interview in order to understand the basic skills of an individual. Sometimes it might have a panel, or most of the time it is one-to-one interview process. Let's move on to the next step, reference and background check. An essential step is the reference check. which is to confirm about the candidate. The candidates are asked to give references and the company follows up on these. Many employers request names, address, telephone numbers of references for the purpose to verify information and gaining additional background information of an applicant. Most of the time, I receive calls from my students, companies in which they have applied for the job. Since they are freshers, the companies would like to get some background from the faculties. So when they call and mention the name of the student, we also check the record and give a positive feedback about the student's performance in the academics and stay in the college or institution. But if they are working and having some previous experience, then the call will be to their previous employer to have a concrete background check. The next step is selection decision. This step is focused to decide to choose the correct candidate who promises the greatest future potentiality for the organization. It is one of the most crucial of all the steps in the selection process. The final decision has to be made from the pool of individuals who pass the tests, interviews, and reference checks. The next step is physical examination. As I mentioned in the beginning, it is not compulsory for all types of jobs, but for certain jobs, it is a must. So after selection decisions and before the job offer is made, the candidate is required to undergo physical fitness test. A job offer is often contingent upon the candidate being declared fit after the physical examinations. Next is job offer and contract of employment. After the decision-making process, the candidate needs to accept the offer, which is known as the contract. Job offer is made through a letter of appointment. Such a letter generally contains a date by which the appointee must report on duty. Contract of employment, basic information is written in contract of employment that varies according to the various levels of job. After the offer and acceptance of the job, certain document is the attestation form, which has to be duly signed and the individual has to express his content for the contract and expresses consent to. The last step is evaluation of selection program. The broad test of effectiveness of selection process is a systematical and a procedural evaluation. A periodic audit is conducted in the HR department that outlines and highlights the areas which need to be evaluated in the selection process. So hence we understand selection as an important step in the entire HR activity, which identifies the right candidates for the company and helps in avoiding false negatives or false positives of the candidates. So selection process has all the way become more complicated because every company wants to have the best talent pool in their organization. So we have discussed in detail the various steps involved in selection procedure.